the subscribe button if you don't want me to come at night.
Have you ever had the feeling of being watched, even when you're completely alone? Imagine an unassuming individual, living a life as ordinary as yours or mine, but beneath the veneer of normalcy, an unseen presence lurks. Just out of sight, a shadowy figure begins to follow, appearing in the blurred periphery of our protagonist's vision. At first, these fleeting glimpses are easy to dismiss, chalked up to the tricks of light or the product of an overactive imagination. Yet as the days roll on, these eerie encounters become impossible to ignore. The faint rustle of clothing when no one's around, the fleeting chill of an unseen gaze, the quick dart of a silhouette at the edge of their vision. These unsettling incidents begin to disrupt the rhythm of their daily life. The protagonist is left to grapple with a growing sense of unease. Soon, what started as a mere figment of imagination began to take a disturbingly real shape. What happens when your worst fears start to creep into your reality? We dive deeper into the chilling tale as the once nebulous figure starts to take a horrifying form. The protagonist, a brave but increasingly rattled soul, begins to discern the figure's features more clearly. What emerges from the darkness is no ordinary specter. It's a towering figure, cloaked in shadows, now known as the Shadow Man. Each encounter with this ominous being becomes more tangible, more real. The Shadow Man isn't just a fleeting glimpse in the corner of the eye anymore. He's a palpable presence, a constant, terrifying reminder of the unseen dangers that lurk within our world. The protagonist's fear is palpable. The tension in the air is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Each appearance of the Shadow Man is more menacing, his proximity closer, his presence more pronounced. The protagonist can feel his breath on their neck, the cold chill that follows him wherever he goes. Each encounter is described with such vivid detail that your heart pounds in your chest, your breath catches in your throat. The suspense is masterfully built, the horror so real it's almost tangible. The Shadow Man is no longer an ethereal figure lurking in the shadows. He's no longer a figment of the imagination, a trick of the light. He's all too real, a terrifying embodiment of the protagonist's deepest, darkest fears. The Shadow Man was no longer a mere shadow, but a terrifying reality. How do you fight something that's not supposed to exist? The protagonist grapples with this question daily. Their existence is now a relentless pursuit, a game of cat and mouse with an entity that doesn't belong in our realm. The Shadow Man has become a constant in their life, an unwelcome guest that refuses to leave. As the days turn into nights and nights into eerie spectacles, the protagonist seeks help. They reach out to friends, family, even professionals, but words fail them, and eyes that should see don't. The Shadow Man remains invisible to all but one. Their pleas fall on deaf ears, their frantic gestures met with concerned glances. The protagonist's fear starts to morph into desperation, a chilling realization that they're alone in this battle. And then the sanity they've clung onto so desperately begins to slip through their fingers. Is it real, or is it a figment of an overworked mind? The protagonist finds themselves questioning their own reality, teetering on the edge of a precipice they never wanted to approach. One chilling encounter stands out in this maddening ordeal. The Shadow Man, always lurking in the peripheral, decides to break its pattern. It appears right next to the protagonist, its formless figure casting a cold, dark shadow. A silent affirmation of its malicious intent, a terrifying promise of what's to come. But that night, things were about to get much, much worse. What if the thing you fear the most is closer than you think? Picture this. It's the dead of night, a silence so profound it's almost deafening. Suddenly our protagonist wakes up in a cold sweat, an unshakable feeling of dread hanging in the air. There it is, the Shadow Man. Looming at the foot of the bed, an ominous figure as still as the darkness itself. Gathering every ounce of courage, the protagonist finally confronts the terror that has been haunting them. "What do you want?" they demand, voice trembling. The Shadow Man doesn't move, but something changes. A revelation, cold and terrifying, seeps into the room. It's about the protagonist, something they never knew, or perhaps something they'd been running from. But just as swiftly as it came, the revelation retreats back into the shadows, a secret too horrifying to speak. And with that, the Shadow Man vanished, leaving behind a terrified soul and an unspeakable secret.
Hit the subscribe button if you don't want me to come at night.